Good evening, race fans, and welcome back to the CIL, the Collegiate iRacing League, here on Twitch and YouTube for your pleasure here tonight. And we have a good one. It's the road finale of Season 2 down south in Brazil. We head to Interlagos for this one. Joining me up in the booth are Josh and John here tonight. And guys, it's a good one, and we got a great battle here on hand.
We do. We had a solid battle last week coming in with a lot of energy and momentum between a couple of the guys, Alexander Klenk from Worcester Polytechnic and Sean Campbell as well from Randolph, who put on a solid battle to go for the win at Sebring 2 Tuesdays ago. And they're going to go ahead and continue that here as we go into the final round, the championship week at Interlagos. As you can see the weather there. So guys, what are we thinking? Who needs to drive safely? Who needs to hustle the car? And what are going to be the obstacles on the track and the cars around these drivers tonight?
Yeah, all excellent questions, Josh, and a very challenging track, very much a driver's track when we come down here to Interlagos. A lot of very interesting on-camber corners, not too many off-camber corners like we see at the likes of places like Circuit of the Americas. So this track really rewards drivers that know how to maximize the car really mid-corner, and so you'll see guys changing their setup to sort of accommodate that quite a bit. But it's a pretty short circuit compared to some of the other places that we've been so far this year. Anti-clockwise, 15 turns, 2.677 miles, and a few of these corners in there. We say 15 turns, but really I can probably count 4 or 5 of them that really these cars will totally ignore as corners, don't even need a brake from them, completely flat even when in traffic. But couple very famous instances we've seen here over the years in the real world, and especially in Formula One. I'm thinking back to 2008. Formula One World Championship was decided here, and it's decided a number of other F1 World Championships over the years, and plenty of very interesting saves. Very common for it to rain here at Interlagos, but I think we'll get away without any rain in iRacing tonight. 66-degree ambient temperature, and then 80-degree track temp, so a nice and cool track. A track that actually doesn't offer a lot of grip. I said it was a driver's circuit, but it really challenges these guys to look after their tires all night. In the practices leading up to this race, guys were complaining about tire fall off after just a couple of laps, and in my experience, you got to really nail your out laps on the qualifying, because the tire really only has about 1 or 2 laps of optimum speed in it, and then it really falls off pretty quick. So got to be watching for that throughout the race. We may see a different tire strategy come in here tonight, but I'm not sure if that's going to be fitting the strategy for Jeremy Rogers, who has claimed the pole position for Texas A&M University in the alumni field, as the students on your screen now head out onto the course. Josh, talk to us a little bit about these cars that the students are driving versus what the alumni have been competing in so far this season.
Well, we got a couple different classes here. These are going to be the GT3 cars that are growing rapidly, frankly, in popularity in the United States and across the world. And lots of different manufacturers represented here. You can see a couple BMWs and Lamborghinis currently in your picture. And these cars are going to be equipped with ABS, equipped with traction control, and are going to be most familiar to a lot of the backgrounds that these students will be coming from. The cars that you just saw that the alumni were driving, you see they're giving a little bit away, making sure everybody's got a lot of space to be doing their best qualifying lap, was the GTE cars that you saw on track. So they had no ABS. They did have a little bit of traction control, a little bit more grip, and a little bit more power. And so that'll be reflected in lap times this evening. And it's going to be a little bit of multi-class racing for both the students and alumni this evening. You see, we talked about Worcester Polytechnic and driver Alexander Klenk looking to take home the championship tonight for his school and his class. So that'll be one to watch all night. He is in the advantageous seat, so he's just got to keep it clean, bring it home, and that should be his trophy.
Yeah, so as we ride on board with him now down into turn 1, hard brakes it just before the 50 board. He really screwed up that corner, man. He's going to be trying for that second lap. I think he was a good 2 or 3 car widths wide of that apex, and that's going to cost him a lot of speed as we head down here onto Reta Oposta, the long straight between turns 3 and 4. Turn 4, pretty hard braking zone. You're going to look for that gray area right there on the right side of the course. Car off in front may have caught him out because he had a big snap of oversteer, a little bit of rear locking into the corner, and that may have been an off track. Not the cleanest of laps that we've seen from Klenk. just coming off of a 24-hour victory with the CIL 24-hour endurance team at Hockenheim, where he drove an impeccable race. not able to quite translate that into this Mercedes right now as we head down into turn 8 and then turn 9, a very long on camber left-hander that will switch around and go uphill. Lots of grip here on the exit, runs it just about all the way out to the side, then open up the steering, take a lot of space here on the entrance, and then close it down on top of the apex for turn 10 on the throttle early, and then it's going to be a little bit of a lift here in turn 11 to get the rear end settled and straight back to the throttle, and then use a lot of space here on the outside. You can get away with that much and even a little bit more, and he takes a little bit of curve on the inside of turn 12 and then proceeds through turn 13, 14, and 15, which will all be completely flat, shifting up the gears, 4th gear, 5th gear, and then might just hit 6th in this car before he gets to the end of the straight, and then proceeds to start his next lap. But not the strongest of opening laps from Alexander Klenk. We'll see where that puts him in the timing sheet, but that didn't even register at times. That definitely means that he had an off track. I'm a suspect that happened between turn 4 and turn 5, where he kind of ran wide after that snap of oversteer on the entrance. But he doesn't really need to worry too much because he's got a strong, healthy points lead coming into this one. So we'll keep an eye on him. I'm sure he'll get it cleaned up throughout the rest of the night as Michael Koholich takes provisional pole for the students.
Yeah, I bet you that first lap was just Clank getting his tires hot and warmed up, and now he's going to go for it. But, John, you mentioned the second sector. I think it's one of my favorites, certainly at this track. And across several venues we go to as we follow along with Koholich there from Angelo State University. And, John, turns 8 and turns 10, both tight right-handers, feel a little bit similar, but they each have their differences, don't they?
Very much so. Turn 8 is very much set up by turn 6, 2 turns before it. So you have a long straight coming off of turn 5 into turn 6, and then you want to carry a lot of speed through 6 and 7, and then you're going to be wide setting up for 8. It's going to be very easy to lock brakes, especially in the GTE cars that don't have the advantage of ABS braking for turn 8. ABS is available in these GT3 cars, as you mentioned earlier, so that will help them, but it's still very easy to get the cars very unbalanced entering 8, and you can take a lot of entry curb on that one. You can get the car entirely on the inside of the curb, actually, for that one. So very different. And then turn 10, I mentioned you want to open the steering a lot. It's very easy to take too tight of an entrance into that corner as you exit turn 9. What you want to do is just hug the left side of the circuit and then very gently bring the car down onto the apex and try to open up the exit as much as possible so you can carry a lot of speed down into turn 11. So I'm sure we'll see a couple guys exercise those lines across the night as we watch Cohen Evans for IUPUI going across your screen has been quietly maintaining a pretty healthy point standing of his own. I think he's in 3rd or 4th in the students' points right now, finishing pretty well at every race. I want to say it was pretty much top 5 every race, if not quite on the leader's pace, just a couple tenths off. So if he doesn't clinch a podium in this season, then I know that I'm going to be watching him in season 3 to try to make a strong comeback and maybe another run at the championship with that fantastic livery on the front of that BMW. So this is turn 10 that he's going through right now. So you see he leaves a little bit of space there on exit. You want to do that so that way you can actually open up turn 11 as he did there, and then use all of that space there on the outside of the turn for turns 12. So yeah, Josh, that's sort of my approach to turn 8 and turn 10. Very tricky though overall.
So as we continue to watch qualifying here, Alexander Klenk is going to set a time. He quickly jumps up to 2nd, but quickly gets bounced to 3rd. Sean Campbell now going to jump to provisional pole right there with a great lap of a 1:31.776. So good run for the Randolph Community College team. We saw them battle last week with Alexander Klenk all night long, and it looks like more of the same here tonight, John.
Yeah, more of the same, but Michael Koholich is about to cross the line again, so we'll see what that does for his time. It says an outlap right now, so he's probably just got a new fresh set of tires onto that Lamborghini machine and setting up for another hot lap of this track. He's only got under a tenth to find to claim pole position, which I'm sure he can do. He was very quick in practice. In fact, the quickest of all the students in practice, and Sean Campbell was just behind, not even a tenth off. So these guys are trading blow for blow in terms of time here. Thomas Toomey, another one of the Lamborghini runners, currently down there in 6th. A very calm and quiet and collected driver, generally speaking. He also participated along with Alexander Klenk and a couple other names in here that did this 24-hour Hockenheim race this past weekend, and he exemplified the case where you need to stay on track and keep the car clean. Unfortunately, earlier this season, I think it was at, correct me if I'm wrong, I think it was at Suzuka where he got kind of tied up in an incident with 2 or 3 other cars, and that really ruined his points outcome out of that race, but luckily he will get that drop at the end of the season and still come up with a good haul of points. I think Virginia is sitting P3 in the Students' Championship right now. So going out there right now, P6, and that 31.729 from Sean Campbell is an absolutely flying time. It's going to be a challenge to beat that one.
John, I tell you what isn't a challenge to beat. It's going to be all the deals you can get on NextBookIt.com, the sponsor here of the CIL here in Season 2. So we're going to turn it over and hear from them and get you right back to the starting grid. So NextBookIt connects book lovers with each other to buy and sell books, from textbooks, fiction, and really everything in between. For every account that is created with the code CIL2021, that's CIL2021, NextBookIt is going to put $5 toward the CIL Scholarship Fund, and that gets directly distributed right back to the drivers in need. So if these drivers want to try out a different car, maybe we're racing at a track that they don't currently have, they can ask, and NextBookIt does provide. So great partnership we've had here in Season 2 with NextBookIt, and hoping to continue that partnership into Season 3 and beyond. And they've been nothing but gracious to us, and hope to continue more of the same, and hope to bring you more racing action, as Gavin Keithley going to loop it around in that tight first couple of corners right there.
Yeah, easy place to do that. If you get up on top of the curb on that second apex, it will oftentimes throw the car wide. I think he may have been a victim of that, though. You do actually want to take a fair amount of curb. The more curb you can take there, the straighter line you'll have coming into turn 3, I think it is, and the faster you will be entering turn 4. And so that's all going to contribute to a lower lap time, as we see him run very wide on the exit of 4 and 5. In the chat earlier, talking about the turns, the off track between turns 4 and 5, and just how sensitive it is. And for my taste, it's maybe a little bit too sensitive. You don't quite need to get all 4 tires off before you have an off track pop up on the screen. I think it's just the center line of the car. If it crosses over the white line on the outside of the circuit, that will constitute an off track and give them a 1x penalty. 17x will issue a drive-through penalty for these drivers. A couple guys earlier in the season having to take drive-throughs, actually, so a very effective penalty too, and something that these guys are going to have to keep in the back of their minds as they wrestle this tough circuit. You see the bump in the middle of turn 11. They're really upsetting that Lamborghini. Maybe a little bit different damping strategy on that car for a little bit different track tonight, but then he exits out of turn 12 onto turn 13 right now. So yeah, pretty quick cars here tonight. Sean Campbell goes even faster, a 31.472. Michael Kaholich unable to improve, I think, on his earlier time of 31.786. So very fast lap from Sean Campbell to take the pole in the student category.
Yeah, and you mentioned those off tracks. Those are going to be something to watch for qualifying, and it's just an invalidated lap, but we're going to see that in the race, and we're going to see incident points, and we wonder if guys will start to approach the limit of incident points after 17. It will be a drive-through penalty for these guys. So something to watch, something to add a little spice to the race here. And John, I've been a victim many times of that runoff area. They're just putting my car about a wheel too wide.
Yeah, it's very easy to do, especially at a track like this. It's not like Coda where you've got plenty of concrete runoff. So even if you do run wide, not only do you get a 1x, but you also get the downside of generally having a slower overall lap time. You don't really gain any time from running wide at any point across this track, unlike you would at Circuit of the Americas. So Jeremy Rogers is going to take pole for the alumni and lead the field away. Derek Ekmanis pulling up P2 for San Diego State. Carl Lemkel in P3. Nick Trollman P4, Rahul Bolaneni for Michigan Tech, and P5 for the alumni in that 333 machine. Scott Ratliff for Pittsburgh State, always with a fantastic livery on the car. And shout out to Scott for producing a fantastic livery for the CIL 24-hour team's Endurance P2 car. Then Nathan Cool for Bemidji State in P7, and Nick Daly for University of Texas at Arlington in P8 for the alumni. And then Alexandre Piccini for then the 021 machine for the Santa Maria Federal University car from Brazil in P9. And then at the front of the student category, Sean Campbell for Randolph Community College takes the pole position there. Michael Koholich very close behind for the Angelo State machine in Texas. And then we've gone to Alexander Klenk, our championship leader for Worcester Polytechnic Institute. And then Sean Valandia for UCLA, Cohen Evans in 14th for IUPUI, Thomas Toomey for Virginia in 15th, and then Matthew Norberg, NC State, missing his compatriot Parker Eaton tonight again down there in 16th, and then Avery Walker in 17th for Virginia, Gavin Keithley in 18th, and I think that rounds out our field. 18 cars tonight. Pretty even split, actually, Jarrett, between the alumni and the student. We've generally seen a lot more students than alumni, but tonight they're pretty even.
We have, and that's going to provide some interesting little give and take battles, I think, later in the race. We know the difference between the cars right around 3 to 4 seconds at best. It'll probably be a little bit tighter than that in terms of lap times between the alumni and the student classes. So we'll see how that plays a factor as the Porsche pace car going to take us through these winding corners down in Brazil. And guys, do you think Alexandre Piccini is looking forward to this one? A little home cooking for him?
Yeah, home race for him indeed. I'm not entirely sure where his university is. We're on the southeast corner, really, of Brazil, not too far from the coast, right there in Sao Paulo. So I'm not sure if he's close to this one, but man, if there was an F1 race that I want to watch, it is Brazil. And if he's ever watched this one live, then I'm supremely jealous of him.
And looks like we've got a full alumni field rolling up. You guys know I love a good GTE race, touring cars with a little extra pizzazz. Pace car will pull off here in a minute, and as you can see, the GT3 class has left a little bit of a gap to account for any excitement that might come on when we drop the green flag. It's here momentarily. Jarrett, bring it to us.
So Jeremy Rogers, the points leader and on pole once again. We'll see if anyone can keep up with the 112 machine here tonight in Brazil. The Porsche pace car taking that left-hand turn onto the pit lane. You see Jeremy Rogers not going to follow him, just cutting that corner just tight. Green flag in the air, and we are racing here in Brazil as they go up the hill and head down toward turn 1.
Piccini in the back got a great jump on UTA and is making it 3 wide there in the back and actually gains 2 positions and into the back of Michigan Tech a little bit. Pittsburgh State wide in turn 1, locked up a break I think he had, and then ran wide in that corner. Nick Trollman able to hang on to, I think, P3 out of that with Rahul Bolaneni back there as well. So Piccini not able to capitalize as we see the GT3 cars come through now.
That's true, and we see Piccini joining in the back, following on board with the GT3, led by Michael Kolich. It's going to be Sean Campbell behind him, and then Worcester Polytechnic. Going back to the start, it looks like we're going to see Piccini get a little bit deep in the corner. That's going to push Pittsburgh State wide. That's Pittsburgh, Kansas. And it looks like Piccini actually is going to have a little bit of rotation with that mid-engine Ferrari and a little bit of contact with the University of Texas at Arlington's Nick Daly and rejoin. So a little bit of a tough start. As we mentioned, now we see UCLA hunting down Worcester Polytechnic, who follows Randolph, following Angelo State University at the point of this one, guys.
Yeah, Angelo State somehow actually getting around the other pretty strong car in this field, Sean D. Campbell. So didn't expect to see Koholich make that move so early. We'll have to look back and see where he got that move done, but still plenty of action going on in this field. Jeremy Rogers about to cross the line to finish his first lap with Derek Ekmanis right behind and Carl Lemkel about 6/10 behind him. Rahul Bolaneni not too far back from that group either. But Nick Daly there in 7th. Piccini, I think, might be going into the pits to get his fast repair done already. We'll have to see when he comes by again. But Jeremy Rogers with that 36.9-second lap. Everybody else in the 37s and 38s in that field. So now another challenge for the lead on the outside and the inside, excuse me, is Sean Campbell taking the position away from Angelo State for Randolph College, taking the lead down here in turn 3.
Sean Campbell, one of the drivers that put a lot of thought into car selection and car setup, talking a lot about the way that the Ferrari hasn't been fast everywhere we've been, but thought it might have an advantage here. Looks like he can't be proven wrong up to this point. We go now to Worcester Polytechnic, still under fire from UCLA. And guys, we usually see Worcester up front a little bit more, P3. You can't say it's not up front, but UCLA ready right here to grab another spot.
Yeah, Sean Philandy has been quietly quick as well this season. Another guy similar to likes of Thomas Toomey, where they tend to not get involved in too many instances, but at the end of the day, they come home with a strong haul of points. So UCLA looking good right now, and on the back of another very quick car. If he can hang with Clink, that's a pretty impressive standing right there. But yeah, Clink sitting P3 right now in that Mercedes, the only Mercedes in the field, I believe, which is a fairly unique choice for a circuit like this. The Mercedes tends to be pretty quick in a straight line, but might suffer a little bit in the corners. It's pretty nose heavy compared to some of the other cars, so it requires a very particular driving style, and a driving style that Alexander Clink has managed to master, I would say, over the course of this season where we've been running the GT3 cars. As we ride on board right now, you can see the back side of the cars in front of him. Now we're looking back from Shondalandia forward to Alexander Clink. You see just the gap that they have for 0.6 of a second. You think that sounds like a pretty tight gap, but there's no chance to overtake unless you're within a tenth or two of the car in front. Sean getting a little bit of understeer there at turn 1. You see how the car just sort of washes wide, and then he gets on top of the curb in turn 2, and you see the result there, Josh. A disaster for UCLA, dropping back to the back of the student category, save for one car, I think.
Yeah, I think so. In UCLA, we've seen it. He got a little bit tight in there, and that's actually totally manageable. But we've seen getting on that curb, and you're full on the gas, especially when you have one tire making contact with the tarmac and one that's not. You usually see that rotation, especially with the engine right there. And these drivers are going to have these cars set up to do a lot of rotating. You just mentioned the Mercedes was a little bit of a surprise for us, as well as any of these cars with the engine in the front. And so it's going to be tough to not rotate when you get in that curb situation. A little battle here between two BMWs. That's IUPUI, Cohen Evans, and Avery Walker in the Virginia BMW. Looks like IUPI make a little move inside. Matthew Nordberg also having a look, but thinking to wait another time from North Carolina State University. And so it looks like everyone falling back in line. You see right there in your shot, also from the University of Virginia, Thomas Toomey. And it looks like actually IUPUI has slipped coming onto the main straight. That's just long enough. We'll see if there's a speed differential that allows those two BMWs to get close towards the end. And it will be a little bit of a tow for anybody in that train right now.
Yeah, it is imperative to get a good exit out of turn 12 because the straight is actually quite long. For a circuit like this, you do run a fair amount of downforce at this circuit, so the top speeds aren't incredibly high, but the straight is fairly long, so if you're within a second of the car in front coming out of the last corner, and he even gets a slightly compromised exit, then you're going to have a good chance to challenge down into turn 1. I'm sure we'll see it happen a few times tonight, but at the front of the student field, we see a bit of a breakaway now. These front three cars, so Sean Campbell for Randolph, Michael Kaholich for San Angelo State, and Alexander Clink for WPI, have broken away from the rest of the field and are just about a few tenths separated from each of these. I can't see this changing anytime soon. These guys like to run together. They did so at Sebring pretty competitively. There was another car mixed in there that is missing from the grid tonight. Nate Olson for Illinois, unfortunately not able to make the race tonight, but he was mixed in there at Sebring as well. But I'll remind you, Josh, it was Campbell on top, Clink second, and Olson third at Sebrings, and it was a pretty tight finish too. One of the tighter finishes that we've had in this league. But tonight it looks like Sean Campbell's stretching out an early advantage, at least in terms of track position.
Absolutely. Sebring, a close and a tight race there. As you see Clank take a little detour onto the curb, but nothing hurt too bad. Following back on with the leaders, see Jeremy Rogers starting to stretch it out a little bit. Behind that's going to be Derek McManus, who's not quite lost Nick Trollman, who hasn't quite lost that Chevrolet GT, if you will. Maybe the Ford Corvette is a better way to state that. From St. Louis University, that's Carl Lemkool. It actually looks like we have some fair even spacing in the back. It'll be Michigan Tech behind these guys. That's Raul Bolanini and then Nathan Kuhl from Bemidji State. And then Nick Daly as well. Carrie and Blaze the Horse from the University of Texas at Arlington. Although I do see the GT3 battle close and maybe a pass underway, guys.
Yeah, and we're looking at Carl Emkel there on your screen as well in that motion sim rig, so he's getting a little bit of extra feedback compared to what we normally see. But it looks like the San Angelo machine has made his way past past Sean Campbell. Might have happened down at turn 1, I suspect. It may be what I was talking about earlier with just getting a great exit out of turn 12. You see just how much curve that Ferrari took there on the inside. So yeah, this is turn 1's and turn 2 right now. So Koholich able to squeeze him and actually get alongside in turn 2. Not an easy thing to do. You tend to either get squeezed wide in that corner and have to give up the position, but Michael Koholich stayed strong on that one and able to retain it. And a very, very impressive move, I might say, from San Angelo. So as we rode on board there with Carl Lemko, I was thinking about, just how violent some of the motions from that rig might be at a track like this, or at a track like even Sebring. I don't know if he was running his full motion rig at Sebring, but if there's one race where I probably don't want to run it, it might be Sebring. I imagine he might have had a mild concussion after running at that track. As we watch his Ford Corvette run around, he's been reminding us all along this season that he really prefers a different car selection, and he's trying to mimic it as closely as he can by pasting a huge Ford logo on the front of that Corvette. I'm sure that makes plenty of Chevy owners extremely happy. I know a few that might complain to me about that one later, but back up at the front in the GT3 field, Michael Koholich has Sean Campbell right behind, just a couple tenths behind as we come here into turn 4. WPI dropping back a little bit from these guys, about a second behind them. Well, he can't fall out of the draft here though, Josh. He's got to stay as tight with them as he can.
Well, a couple things. You're exactly right. You got to stay tight with them. And, I wonder if the AMG Mercedes, as fast as Clank makes that car, I wonder if it's just not up to the challenge, the rotation that these guys are using. But we know that these two from Angelo State, that's Koholich, as well as Sean Campbell from Randolph, have experience driving against each other as well as together on some teams. They're spent some time on Neon Racing team together when they're not here on your screen in CIL. So they know each other's drive styles. They're very comfortable with each other, and they know that Alexander Clank can be a threat behind. So maybe they feel that it's to their advantage to work together, try and run a little bit closer, get that draft, get that gap spread out, and then go racing.
Right now, that is working for him. Clank either didn't get a great exit out of that corner, or both these guys just got an absolute amazing one. As we see them go side by side into turn 1, Michael Koholich is going to have a little bit of an advantage being on the inside for turn 1, and I think Sean Campbell knew that wasn't far enough alongside. They've got the Porsche of Nick Daly in front of them. Michael Koholich having to really cut the corner for turn 2 to avoid that Porsche. A bit of front end damage on that Porsche as well. You see Michael Koholich shouting on the radio about that. He probably wasn't too happy about having to work his way around some GTE traffic that he really shouldn't, and that might cost him the lead here. Sean Campbell on the outside into turn 4, going to back out of it and just tuck back up underneath, and actually runs a little bit wide on there. Safe to do that. You can do it, but it will cost you an off track, so reminder, we'll have to keep track of that. WPI is going to try to capitalize on that as well and send it around the outside here. Tricky place to do that. There's plenty of grip there, but not a lot of space eventually. Still on the outside as we head down through turn 8 right now into turn 9. Still on the inside, exactly where you want to be, and he's going to have to jump on the throttle really early to beat that Ferrari down to turn 10, but the Ferrari's got the better upper hand into this one. Turns it very early, so WPI is going to have a good exit here compared to the Ferrari, but the Ferrari actually manages to enable a lot of traction off that corner, and then into turn 11, down to turn 12, and we're back where we started. Michael Koholich in front, Sean Campbell in P2, and Alexander Clank in P3, with the GTE field coming up behind them.
Yeah, so if you go back one lap, we saw that little radio communication, and I believe the driver of the Angelo State machine was politely informing that he received a slowdown for that path that he took, and was not very happy with that rejoin. But, guys, I think he managed to give that slowdown penalty back, according to iRacing, while maintaining position there. As you see, that's how we started that with the University of Texas at Arlington, looping around a little bit. He tried to get that machine pointed the right way, right as the leaders came by. Yeah, and it's so hard to check that blind spot. Evasive action from the drivers, and that is how your leader, Angelo State University, collected that slowdown penalty.
Yeah, so for those that are unfamiliar with how iRacing works, if you cut a corner, it will oftentimes issue you what Josh just mentioned, a slowdown penalty. And what that means is that you have to lift off the throttle at least, a good 30 or 40% within the next 30 or 35 seconds and relinquish, a good second to a second and a half off your lap time to eliminate any advantage you might have gained. Obviously, that was not an advantage for him to run that there. That was just where he had to put his car, but nevertheless, he came up with that. Still able to hang on to the lead after all that, so it didn't hurt him too bad. Shouldn't have any damage from that either. These cars tend to be pretty resilient going over any bumps that they might. Pacini on the back of the WPI machine, so Pacini in a GTE car trying to hang on to the back of the GT3 cars for the time being. That just shows you how fast some of these students are in this machinery right now. As we head onto the back straight, we'll watch this Ferrari, see if he can't get the draft and challenge down into turn one.
Yeah, that's going to be Sean Campbell from Randolph in the Ferrari. He's going to look to make a move. Looks like a little bit of defense. He won't be able to go low. Angelo State will allow him to go high for the time being. Looks like he'll step out of the draft. Will he be able to get alongside? Looks like he will. Can he hold this position? I don't think it's going to work, not from that angle, so he'll try a little bit of a crossover move and see what he can get done there.
Still very tight though as we come through turn 3 right now. You see just how much aero wash he got out there. That was a little bit of combined aero wash and just opening up the steering, riding on board with him right now, right tucked up underneath the wing. Doesn't quite have the straight line speed to get all the way up alongside that that Lamborghini. A couple Italians might be mad at me for mixing that one up there. But yeah, two Italian marks going at it right now, the Lamborghini and the Ferrari. WPI dropping back a little bit in this group right now, 1.5 seconds off this battle, and Michael Kaholich has his hands full trying to defend from that Ferrari right now. That is not a sight that I want in my rear view mirrors. Michael trying to close down onto the apex as much as he can and make Sean go the long way around, and really not a lot of opportunities to pass here in the center of the field. And right now, it looks like Sean was thinking about a move there actually into turn 10. He could have suffered the same fate as what Alexander Albon suffered. I think it was either last year or 2019. He tried to send a move on the inside of Lewis Hamilton there, and Lewis closed the door on him very late and they made contact. Very common thing to happen when you make, it's not quite a last minute dive bomb there, Josh, I might say, because the way this track works is you want to open up that turn 10 entrance as much as you can, but that leaves the gap open for the guy on the inside to really slot it up there and compromise your entry. But you've got to be able to see him too, and that was the issue there with Formula One. Luckily, these cars, a lot better visibility, as man, Pacini just has really lost all the straight line speed from that Ferrari with those earlier instances, not even able to close down on this GT3 battle up front for the time being. Oh, bit of a tap from Sean Campbell onto the back of Michael Kaholich. Kaholich in the wall on the exit of turn 2. Unbelievable scenes here on lap 10. Just a little bit of a tap as they come out of turn 1 on the transition into turn 2. He was alongside, but just barely, just enough to tap that rear right fender of that Lamborghini and send him around. Might have been a little bit of netcode there as well, helping him.
I also saw the netcode, John, and a really tough break there as Michael Kaholich couldn't get that car backed up because all the GT3 traffic was coming. So he is back down in 8th, and that means it is Sean Campbell all by himself for Randolph, just trying to stay ahead of WPI. I'll also note, and it looks like he's a little bit better off now, but Pacini there, as we revisit it, I think it maybe not as out of straight line speed so much. And yeah, that was how looks like WPI was able to get around at this point Sean Campbell there.
Yeah, so WPI promoted to the lead there, and now it's going to be a battle between these two. Michael Kaholich down in 8th, and probably a cumulative amount of about 14 or 15 seconds off. It's WPI taking a wild line out of turn 12, just carrying too much speed in the corner, and he's going to be very slow off the corner as well. This is an opportunity for Thomas Toomey, send it around the outside through turns 13 and 14. Alexander's going to try to make it as short a run to the line as possible, but this looks not great for the WPI machine. You just see the Lamborghini sliding in front before they even get to turn 1. So I don't know if he caught a little bit of curb there on the entrance. Actually, Toomey a little bit wide there in turn 1. And it's not going to have a lot of speed off at turn 2. IUPUI is getting involved here as well. WPI swings out wide to try to get some clean air on the nose of that Mercedes. Now tuck up underneath the wing of that Virginia machine. Let's go who's written on the back of that machine there, but all three in a line going into turn 4.
Yeah, what a gaggle there and a shakeup for P2 through P4 there. Randolph loves to see this, a little bit of a breather for that team. However, University of Virginia, Thomas Toomey trying to hold off WPI as well as IUPUI. We know Cohen Evans in that Jaguar machine has the pace here. So maybe he's just waiting for one of these guys to go wide, slip, put a tire wrong, and hop in there. We've just seen it's very, very possible in the last few minutes.
Very possible indeed, but Josh, if these guys battle a lot, then they can say goodbye to Sean Campbell. He continue to extend that 1.6 second advantage he has over them right now. When you're battling with other cars, it costs you time and it costs your competitors time in a massive way. So they will have to work together if they're going to close that gap down. Luckily, on this back straight, Sean has nobody to help him along. Alexander Klenk has the car in front of him to tow him along, and the car in front actually gets a slight benefit as well, a slight drag reduction from some of the air coming off the back of that car. So they'll be in a three-wide battle there, in a straight line of 3 cars there, all helping each other out down into turn 1. But there's your Ferrari on your screen, followed by these 3 very closely behind. So IUPUI in 4th, and Alexander Klenk for WPI, and then Virginia in 2nd place. That might be one of the highest finishing positions, as I quickly look through my notes, that Toomey's had all season. I don't think he's actually had a podium except for the very first race of this season. He finished P2 at Circuit of the Americas, has not had a podium since, so this would be a very welcome podium for the Virginia machine.
Exactly. Virginia and runs a little bit wide there, opens up the door for Klenk and WPI. Looks like Cohen Evans will try and figure out who to follow as they go into an upcoming right-hander. Looks like WPI will get out ahead. Virginia will give up that position and will have to keep their mirrors clear of the Jaguars behind them. But that's going to be Alexander Klenk and WPI to the 2nd position of the GT3 field. And following back now, looks like Sean Valandia trying to keep just ahead of the NC State machine. That's Matthew Nordberg. And again, Sean Valandia, pace all season, maybe not quite in the draft of these leaders here. Michael Koholich, though, picking up. And he'll be running down Matthew Nordberg, who we just mentioned. And it looks like Scott Ratliff in the GTE behind him from Pittsburgh State will also be trying to work. So following along here with Jeremy Rogers, this is Texas A&M, and you can see he is going to be in the best position to come away with the trophy for his class championship tonight, going to Texas A&M should he be able to bring that machine home.
Yeah, I'm very impressed by Jeremy. All season long, I've been impressed by him significantly. Not only has he been extremely consistent and fast all season, making very few mistakes, but he's also learned quite a bit about how to set up that Corvette to his advantage. Learned a lot about tuning, been chatting away in the Discord quite a bit, learning tips and tricks for how to set up that car, and I think he's pretty much mastered it. And I'm looking at his lap times right now, and only on 1 lap did he dip into the 130s outside of the very first lap. So 129s for that Corvette, that A&M machine, all night long so far, and I don't think anybody else has been able to do that. Derek Ekmanis is only had 1 lap in the 129s, and that was the 2nd lap. So you remember me talking about tire fall off and how fast it was this course. Jeremy Rogers did set his fastest lap on lap 3 with a 29.3, and since then has really been struggling, and it's been a high 29s since then. But compared to everybody else, he has got a lot of pace in that machine. So we'll keep an eye on seeing what that gap does at the front of the field, but I would be pretty surprised if anybody's able to work their way up there and challenge Jeremy Rogers before this night is over. So WPI trying to hunt back down Sean Campbell, 2-second gap between 1 and 2 as they come on here to the straight. So maybe just about now getting a little bit of draft advantage off of Sean Campbell's car, but if any, it won't be much at all. You see it kind of evening out that gap as they sort of hit the midpoint crossing that start-finish line. But keep an eye on that gap between 1 and 2 throughout the next lap, and we'll see if it closes down at all.
Yeah, and I'm watching a couple intervals. I'm seeing that Alexander Pacini has been able to close down Nathan Kuhl. We saw Pacini with the initial excitement early on. Looks like Nathan Kuhl now working, actually, I will say, working on Michigan Tech University. That's Rahul Bolanini. And these two have been following for some time. You also saw for a little bit Nick Trollman following Derek Ekmanis, separated by less than a second there. But these guys in the GTE cars, a little bit more flavor to play with. These guys have been working hard and will continue to do so all night long. And we've now eclipsed a third of this race. And John and Jarrett, how are we thinking about pit stops? We've heard no tires. We've heard 4 tires. We've heard 1 tire. What are we thinking for the halfway point in this race?
You know, it depends on where you're at in this field, but generally speaking, I'm not expecting guys to take the risk and take tires. It just costs you too much time in the pit stop. You can try to do right sides only, this being an anti-clockwise circuit. Those tires get punished a lot. That right rear, especially in all the traction zones, like this corner that we're coming through here, that right rear gets punished massively. So I'd be pretty surprised if we see guys take any tires. Jarrett, what do you think?
Yeah, we heard guys talk about it, especially Carl Lemkool, guys in the practice saying, is it worth it? Is the tire fall off too much? And we see the sun poking through the clouds here a couple times in Brazil, but overall, an overcast sky, cool track. I don't think tires are going to be worth it in terms of time. I would be surprised if we don't see someone try somewhat of an undercut or an overcut, pitting either before or after your class leader, especially as they try to chase down Sean Campbell. Don't be surprised if we see a little gamesmanship with these three right here. Klink, Toomey, and Evans maybe try to work on all going on the same lap, continue to work together, and maybe chase down Sean Campbell before this one's said and done. Josh?
Yeah, I would have to agree as we try and see it's going to take a little bit of brain power, working smarter, not harder. Though they will have to work pretty hard to catch up to Randolph, though. You can follow that gap there. It was at about 2 seconds from Clank to the leader. That's a little bit less now, about 1.5, showing 1.3 seconds now. And that'll fluctuate as these cars go around slow and quick portions of the track. But I think, guys, Alexander Clank's best bet right now is to be patient, conserve these tires. We know that the AMG Mercedes uses a little bit more tires over the course of the race. So he wants to make sure that he's taking care of that machine. Again, we said probably no fresh tires at the pit stop. And it looks like we're going to see Gavin Keithley just do a little bit of a loop. He is right on the exit. He'll want to move that race car, and he will do so off of the curbing. Smart play from Mr. Keithley there for the University of Minnesota and the Golden Gophers. So as we were saying, though, we're going to have to watch the start. In fact, I see Alexander Clank. So Randolph now coming down, seeing if they can do a special pit strategy. But Randolph would be the first one to pit road. He'll miss his box a little bit, and we will not see that car go up on the jack stand, so it's going to be fuel only as expected for your race leader.
That is a strategy I was not expecting to see. The pit window has probably just about opened for those cars, but the fact that he missed his pit box is probably going to cost him about 2 seconds, which is what the gap was back to Alexander Clank. So we'll see if Clank chooses to cover off that strategy and take the pit stop the next time by, but I'd be really surprised if he does. He probably does not have his fuel strategy set up to accommodate that right now, and so I bet he's planning to go pretty deep into this race, and we'll have to see where these guys come out because they will not be close on track for probably the next 15 to 20 minutes if that is the case. But now IUPUI and Virginia getting pretty racy here. Cohen Evans in the BMW, really the only guy to make a name for himself in that BMW so far this season. I think Avery Walker had just switched to the BMW for this race, but not too many people being a fan of that car. It's a little bit tricky to drive, I've found. Might have a good amount of pace in it, but it's just difficult to extract. But that IUPUI man has figured it out for that car and figured out whatever setup strategy he needs to make that car work as he follows Virginia onto the straight. So we'll look at Clank here to see if he comes into the pit lane. He does not. So I think that tells me, Josh, that he's going to stay out and try to extend this fuel stint as late as possible. It's possible, Josh, that Sean Valandia was not running much fuel coming into this race and had planned on taking that stop at about that 20-minute mark.
Yeah, sometimes guys will fuel just as much as they can and try to be light at the end, but maybe he felt he was going to try to stretch it out at the beginning. He did a little bit, and then he came down pit road, so maybe he's getting fresh tires. We know Sean and Randolph are no strangers to a little bit of strategy, patience, as we see here, actually. Jeremy Rogers I see Jeremy Rogers and Texas A&M are in front. That is just where your previous GT3 leader, Sean Campbell, has come out. So maybe a couple turns, Randolph will have a tow here, but eventually that GT3 will use just its extra horsepower to march off. In fact, you see the gap jumping out just a touch. So, Randolph and Sean Campbell will be one to watch here, as we also see this gap has again closed. Nick Trollman from Cal State Long Beach closing on Derek Ekmanis from San Diego State University. So these two pretty vocal Porsche aficionados trying to take their rear engine machines and get them into second place. about 14 seconds behind Jeremy Rogers, but second place very much up for grabs. And guys, these guys have been racing bumper to bumper all race long, and I'm pretty sure have had no incident points and have had a really respectful race up to this point.
Yeah, and even machinery to do it as well. One of the advantages of the Porsche is you can be pretty late on the brakes compared to some other cars in the field. It's one of the best performers in the braking zone. But when you're racing a guy with the same equipment, that advantage falls away, and it's pretty much even except for whatever you've done with setup. So if one guy's running a little bit less wing, then he'll have a little bit more straight line speed, potentially a little bit more unstable of a car in the corner. You see just how much curb on the inside of turn 12 that Nick Trollman took there, looking back from Derek McManus. It's pretty interesting to me that that car didn't get very upset going over that curb. There might be a particular angle where you have to hit it. If so, I did not find it in any of the laps I've ever run at this circuit. But Nick Trollman may have his car set up there as he's looking for the inside for turn 1. Going to try to be late on the brakes, but not late enough. The San Diego State machine will sweep in front into turn 2. Nick Trollman actually with a good amount of slip angle through turn 2 there, and still carrying a lot of speed through turn 3. Might try to challenge early down into turn 4 right now. It looks like he's pretty far alongside. If he can be late on the brakes and close up that braking zone, then the corner is his, but we'll see if San Diego will sweep around the outside, but he goes deep into the corner, runs wide. That is going to gift that position to Cal State Long Beach as they head up the hill here.
Yeah, both drivers given a lot of room, and that was a tough place to do it. But you see that Cal State Long Beach moving in. Looks like running a little bit wide is San Diego State University, but looks like that pass is completed on that San Diego State machine. So we saw it there into turn 1, an early move from Trollman. Didn't quite pan out, but he stuck with it, did a little crossover, and you mentioned it, John, had an excellent angle out of turn 2 around that sweeping turn 3, had the bigger corner speed, and so when he got onto that straight, the Red Opasta that you had mentioned certainly had the pace and got the job done. Going into turn 4, completed it coming out of turn 5, and it is not the first pass that we've seen that will span multiple corners, and that's the technical part that we love to see, both from this track and these cars and these drivers.
Yeah, absolutely. I think those are the corners that really make this track a driver's track. Guys just absolutely love driving this track, whether it be in Formula One, WEC, doesn't matter the series, in any series. This track is a lot of fun as Derek drops a tire into the grass in the braking zone, able to keep it pretty much in a straight line, just a little bit of a half spin there. That's going to put Carl Lemkool probably right onto the back of that machine. So he just dipped that right rear tire in the grass as he broke for turn 1 there, and that caused him to spin. So you'll see him tucked up underneath the wing of the Porsche in front. He is the car behind that we're looking at there. But the concrete on the outside will go away as you hit the brakes there, and then it becomes grass. I don't think he was paying attention to that maybe as closely as he should, but luckily he is able to keep the car in a pretty straight line, a little bit of momentum, and not lose too much time from that.
Well, that's accurate, and yeah, a little bit of target fixation, and that track goes away and gives way to grass, but absolutely great car control there. I would have thought he'd be spinning all the way around, but able to, you'll notice the tires were on the brakes, off the brakes. I think he had a little bit of throttle input and really drove that car to keep it pointed in the right direction for the most part. Back here with your leader, Alexander Klenk for WPI, and then Thomas Toomey following behind a little bit. It looks like that gap has stretched out to about a second. Not too big, not too small. So these guys trying to run, and you wonder if Thomas Toomey is trying to save a little bit of fuel or run a little bit conservatively. Also going to see if Thomas Toomey can stay within distance, guys. He's going to have a little bit more tire left over at the end of this race and might be able to mount a charge there for that race win.
Yeah, Jarrett, Josh, I'm going to need to get your opinion on something here. I'm trying to figure out if Alexander Klenk is going to be able to come out in front of Sean Campbell after he makes this pit stop. Here's my theory, is that since Alexander is clearly going a lot deeper into the race with his strategy, he's not going to have to put in as much fuel, which means he's going to have a significantly shorter stop, and he's going to be running on lower fuel for longer. If Sean Campbell had to put in a full tank, then he would be stopped for a very long amount of time. And he's got a car that's absolutely full of fuel right now, halfway into the race when the tires are really worn. So I don't think that's going to help him at all. What do you guys think, Jarrett?
Yeah, I mean, looking at the pit time right now is an 18.62 second stop for Sean Campbell. So I do not expect that to be anywhere close for Alexander Klenk. And you mentioned it, he could probably go another 10 to 15 minutes before he needs to make that stop. And you mentioned the tires as well. It's going to be pretty tough for Sean Campbell. Those tires are hot. They're going to stay hot. And Clink, when he comes down pit lane, he's going to give him a chance to cool off. So might be able to find a little bit more grip on that outlap. Josh?
Yeah, and I wonder if it's something, maybe something that was non-normal there that drove that leader to pit road. I wonder if he started with his qualifying fuel in. That would have made a little more sense. Or I wondered if he received a little bit of damage, maybe more likely in that altercation with Koholich and Angelo State University to the right front. We know that he's going to want that downforce. He's going to want to avoid the drag. If there was any damage there, maybe he was waiting to get his pit window open and then just top that car off, take that fast repair, and get back on pace. Could be a couple reasons outside of standard pit strategy that he chose to bring that Ferrari down pit road.
Yeah, it could be a couple of reasons, but it is all speculation for the time being. We'll have to probably wait another 10 minutes or so to see where those guys feed out relative to each other, as we're looking at Nathan Kuhl for Bemidji State in that 911 trying to chase back down Rahul Bolaneni. And this 911 RSR race car is actually a little bit unique in terms of 911s. If you look at pretty much any other 911 race car, you can pretty confidently say that yes, it is a fully rear engine car. That rear engine is sitting on top or behind of the rear wheels as in a traditional 911 would be. But the 911 RSR is actually a little bit different. They move the engine pretty far forward in that car, so it's actually more of a mid-engine car. It's just barely rear engine, if anything. So that's going to shift the weight bias a little bit more forward in the car, a little bit closer to what an optimum static weight balance might be in one of these cars. Probably a little bit closer to like a 54% rear weight distribution as compared to some of the other 911s that guys might have raced in iRacing, such as the 911 Cup car, which probably has closer to a 58 or 60% rear weight distribution. So that's going to enable him to be a little bit more consistent on his setup overall, and it's just a faster race car in every single way. So Avery Walker missing turn one there, taking to the grass. Seen a number of Formula One drivers make that same mistake, and as he comes back up on the circuit, the front left tire just grips up there and spins the car a little bit around again. May have had some throttle in and not enough traction control to save him there. So Avery Walker down in 5th place right now behind Sean Valandia for UCLA, and that's put Matthew Norberg right back on the tail of this BMW, the NC State machine, looking to make a pass.
NC State Wolfpack looking once again to make the most of the opportunity presented here. You can see 17 seconds back is Sean Campbell, keeping an eye still, but this BMW here for the University of Virginia, actually, guys, they're going to have a little bit of a play here as the leader from the GTE class, the overall race leader, Texas A&M, moves through. And I wonder if Texas A&M can make a little bit of a hole if Nordberg and North Carolina State can move that Wolfpack machine through the same hole there. So that'll be something to watch for. But maybe a little bit far back, it looks like going to give some room here. And I don't know that that's going to work out just how we said. I think it's going to be pretty spread out. In fact, Pitt's just missing the pit wall there, guys. So University of Virginia, Avery Walker to pit road, and current leader GTE, that is Texas A&M, is going to remain untouched. And then it looks like a little bit of a tow for the time being for North Carolina State.
Yeah, very few tracks that we see where you actually take the line across the start-finish straight, where you cut across the pit entrance like that and just barely miss that tire wall blockade that borders the wall for the pit lane entrance there. So we saw, I think that was Avery Walker there in the pit lane, and you see a pit exit right now. So he is on the gas, on the pit limiter right now. It's going to take that hard left-hander down to exit this pit lane, and then a right-hander, and then that long left-hander that meets up with the exit of turn 3 to rejoin the circuit. So looking at Alexander Clank now, he has stretched a 2-second advantage over the University of Virginia machine. Remember, these guys might be 1 and 2 on the track right now, but when he pitted, Sean Campbell was first. While he's in 6th right now, that may not stay that way. Alexander Clank and Thomas Toomey and Cohen Evans, and in fact, a majority of the GT3 student field still have yet to make a pit stop. You see that graphic there on your screen. We're looking at Alexander Clank is at the topmost portion of the circuit right now, closely followed by Toomey and Evans. And then if you look a little bit further back the field, you can get an idea of where Sean Campbell is at the time. So in order to retain the lead, Sean Campbell will have to come out in front whenever Alexander Clank takes his pit stop. And as we mentioned earlier, I'm not so sure that that is a possibility for him tonight. It may not be the right strategy call. It's the first time we've actually seen that strategy call, I think, in the series that wasn't forced. And, you know, we may have to conversate with him afterwards to see if that's forced as Virginia takes their pit entry right now.
Yeah, it's Thomas Toomey to pit road. So Alexander Clank now trying to go as deep as he can in this run, and Cohen Evans right behind him from IUPUI. As we shuffle around, also to note that Sean Blandia from UCLA had a little bit of an exciting opening, but up to third currently. You see Sean Campbell there, and then Nick Trollman. And Nick Trollman has spread his advantage out over Derek McManus a little bit more. So the Twitch chat Trollman aficionados will enjoy that little fact. And looking like he's going to make a pass here that is on the GT3 machine of Randolph. So getting through safely. Guys, multi-class racing this evening has been tricky at a couple times. We saw Pacini trying to get through the GT3s as the three leaders were battling. We've seen, a couple of those guys. I'm thinking of Scott Ratliff as well from Pittsburgh State, trying to move up through the field. We've seen some GTE battles that have had to get around the GT3 machines. So coming into play here a little bit.
Yeah, coming into play indeed. Some of these guys are pretty well versed in multi-class action after that 24-hour race last week, and other couple guys maybe not so quite well versed in it. But Michigan Tech right now making his way through turn 8, turn 9, being chased down by Nathan Kuhl for Bemidji State right now. I like the two-tone livery on this Michigan Tech machine with some intricate lines in between. So black and white livery on that car looking really sharp. A lot of sharp liveries in there tonight overall, even with some of the neon accents that we see on some of these cars as well. But back in, actually, what was I going to say earlier? I remember it now. It was Jeremy Rogers and I were talking about, you mentioned rotation earlier, as we see Nick Trollman. She doesn't take his pit stops at that 38-minute mark. So Jeremy Rogers and I were talking about car setup going into this race, especially talking about how our approach was to turn 11. And I was asking him if he was able to keep that flat, and he said, yes, just barely. He's got a little bit too much rotation, sort of mid-corner for that one there, but he wants that rotation everywhere else. Josh, you talked a little bit about rotation into corners, and what we mean by that is just the slip angle at the rear of the car means you've got a little bit more yaw rate on corner entry, so the car actually yaws around while still gripping up, and so you still have a lot of grip mid-corner. It's not drifting the car, it's not sliding the car, it's just using a little bit of rotation in the chassis. So as you watch Alexander Clank come through here, you see as the nose darts in, the rear end kind of has to follow. That's what we're talking about there. Not all tires are perfectly gripped up with the surface. They're slightly sliding around, but not so much as the casual viewer might notice. So race cars are significantly looser than we might have expected at this stage. 40 minutes in, these tires are really hot. Alexandre Pacini coming down pit lane. Here comes Alexander Clank down into turn 1.
Yeah, the good close-up shot of that Mercedes there, and that Mercedes has been what Clank has been working with most of the season. You can see there his closest competitor, if you will, Cohen Evans IUPI. So those two cars have not pit. Still waiting for Carl Lemkool and that St. Louis machine to come down pit road, understand if they will be taking any sort of tires. They were the ones that discussed that strategy. But yeah, don't know, John, if we'll really see that pan out. I think there were a lot of naysayers there. So again, we see that Texas A&M just trying to move through the field, and he doesn't have to push 25 seconds back to Derek McManus, who is the next closest GTE. So, John, you've said it a couple times. I'll say it again, that Texas A&M machine is hooked up, and you can see the work that that team has put in as well. Nathan Kuhl from Bemidji State now on pit road.
Yeah, A&M machine, I'm looking at his lap times. He's back down into the 29s, had breached the 30-second mark about lap 14 or so, and then had a few other 30-second laps. But as that fuel load came off, it kind of counteracted the tire wear and the overheated tires that he will be experiencing. So a very light race car, may not be handling as well as he would prefer through the corners, but he's going to have a lot of acceleration, a lot less weight in that car to get down the straight. He probably needs about 30 gallons in total to complete this race. It looks like he may be coming down pit lane this time on my screen. He does not. Alexander Clank choosing to take his pit stop. Alexandre Pacini, I think, right behind him as well. So this is the race. So we'll see if Clank, once he makes his pit stop and gets the fuel into that Mercedes, is able to retain the lead that he had when he entered it. Here comes Sean Campbell now. This is the car he will be racing at pit exit. The pit exit is in turn 3. So Sean Campbell has to make it through 2.5 corners, really, to get around Alexander Clank. Clank is already out of his pit box and going through pit exit now down into turn 1. This looks like it might come up Clank.
And it does look like it will be advantage WPUI on the main straight. Now you can see that the machine will come out onto Reta Oposta that you mentioned before. and a fair advantage by about 3 seconds. He did get through cleanly. We saw in qualifying, Alexander Klenk actually managed to loop and the exit, that tight exit to pit road, but all good now. So yeah, it looks like a fair advantage to Alexander Klenk, reading 5 or 10, maybe 3 seconds back to that Ferrari.
Yeah, about 3 seconds back. I saw his brake lights pop on just as he exited the pit lane. I think these GT3 cars cannot quite take the pit exit completely flat on the throttle, and so he was carrying a little bit too much speed and just had to check up to make sure he didn't run wide into the grass and then into the wall. It's happened before where cars have actually pulled in Austin Powers and gone completely perpendicular in the pit lane and gotten entirely stuck, and races have had to be red flagged for that. Obviously not an issue in iRacing where we can tow cars much more easily in the virtual world than we can in the real one. But yeah, not working out that strategy call for Sean Campbell. Alexander Klenk in fourth right now on track, but Cohen Evans has inherited the lead. He still has yet to make that pit stop, but once he does, he will feed back out, probably behind. I think he was behind Thomas Toomey before that one happened. And Michael Gaholich actually 8 seconds back from Toomey, who is 8 seconds back from Sean Campbell. So that initial touch that Michael Gaholich had from Sean Campbell has cost him a total of about 16 seconds up to this point. So I'm pretty disappointed for that Angelo State car. He's had a lot of great races this season, a number of pretty good podiums as well. And just that unfortunate tap there, I think, on the first 5 laps in, putting him down the field a significant way. So IUPUI on your screen right now, going through turn 9.
Yeah, and John, if I can jump in here from pit lane, you talked about sliding through the box for Sean Campbell. His pit lane time, so time not spent in the box, 39.88. Alexander Klenk, 36.27. 3 seconds of difference on pit lane. 4 seconds difference in the box, a 14-second stop for Klenk as opposed to an 18-second stop for Campbell. And that's the difference right now, guys.
Yeah, that is the difference indeed. But actually, that kind of highlights how much pace that Sean Campbell had during that time when he was out there on track with a full tank of fuel on top of very hot tires, because he's only 2.5 back from Alexander Klenk, and when he went into the pits, I think he was about 2 seconds in front. So it was about a 4.5 second difference there, and that is not represented, I think, for was that 9 second total difference in terms of pit stop time. So Sean still got plenty of pace. This race is not over yet. Alexander Klenk could still lose this one if that Ferrari gets pretty crafty and pretty racy, and they will be on similar fuel levels towards the end of this race now. So Alexander Klenk only had to put in probably about 9.5 to 10 gallons, I would think, into that car. It's about a 30-gallon race in general here, maybe just slightly under for some of these GT3 cars.
Yeah, and I'm watching now. We have on pit road Carl Lemkool and St. Louis University. He will bring that Corvette machine down for service, and it looks like that car will not go up on jack stands. It's going to be fuel only for that machine. And so actually, I take that back. It looks like there is some tire changing on that machine, so he will be down and away. Although quite a fast stop, so maybe just one tire for the your P2 alumni driver, GTE.
I think he was the one in the Discord leading up to this race talking about how he might just take the one right rear tire. That is the tire that gets punished the most around this course. So we'll see how that works out from him in terms of lap times. We'll check up with him a little bit later. Jeremy Rogers still yet to pit and actually goes by for another lap out on track right now. We're watching Matthew Norberg right now trying to chase down Michael Kaholich for 6th spot. So the two Lamborghini battle, the Wolfpack versus Angelo State. And going through turn 9 right now, these cars have been pretty even so far. We know Michael Kaholich has a lot of pace, but Matthew Norberg has had pace at times, I would say, over the course of the race, just kind of capitalizing on issues that cars in front have really had and running a clean race so far. Speaking of which, I saw Alexander Klenk between turn 4 and 5 run off track again, and I know Klenk's going to be pushing hard, so it'll be interesting to see how many instant points he's racked up with about 15 minutes to go here.
Yeah, and we do have the stats you can see there. The incident points will be shown. So you asked about Alexander Klenk, 11, only 6 away from that 17 level. Actually, Alexander Pacini also looking at 16, so he's 1 away from that issue. It looks like Scott Ratliff actually would have already had a drive-through penalty. So a couple of these guys up against the foul limit, and we talked about that with the stern runoff rules after turn 4, John. It is not hard to pick up a few of those off tracks, but No surprise that Jeremy Rogers casually running has just two. Nick Trollman with just one. Cohen, Evans, Thomas Toomey, and 5 and 8 there. Michael Koholich actually 3X, which is noteworthy because he was involved as we see Jeremy Rogers, maybe the final car to pit road, especially for GTE. So 45 minutes into this hour-long race, guys, making the most of their full fuel tank. Those guys going through, yes.
Yeah, Jeremy Rogers must have been able to save an enormous amount of fuel over the course of his stint, and he's got the advantage of having the very last pit stall in the pit box, so he can get on the throttle straight out of his pit box too, and pretty much shorten his run into the turns from that. And he actually took, it looks like, only about 6 seconds on my screen for that pit stop time. Jared, you'll have to check and see what his time actually was, but it looks like an incredibly fast stop, which tells me that he almost certainly saved a lot of fuel with only 13 minutes left to run in this race. That might be one of the latest pit stops that we've ever seen in a CIL race, as we've got a little bit of traffic now. GTE and GT3 cars getting mixed up together. NC State trying to pick up a tow off of the San Diego State machine. The San Diego State machine is going to have a lot more straight line pace there and easily overtake into turn 1 for the time being. But a little bit further on back, Derek Ekman is still, actually no, this is the battle we're looking at right now. These two Porsches still going at it, 7/10 off of Nick Trollman for Cal State Long Beach. This is still a battle that has a long way to go, but Derek Ekman is 16x right up against that instant limit. Josh, he cannot afford to make any mistakes.
Not a slip, and yeah, we've seen these guys running really close together, and the GT3 car getting in the mix for a little bit, but with the tow, that will help the San Diego State machine just a bit. So certainly one to watch here as we close down. Coming up on 10 minutes to go, and Jeremy Rogers is comfortable. Rahul Bolanini putting up a really good showing for that Michigan Tech machine and that Ferrari. And then we continue to see who is going to come out on that final podium spot. Nick Trollman from Cal State Long Beach or Derek McManus from San Diego State University.
Yeah, both these guys would like to add another podium to their collection, and Michael Koholich in the mix now with these guys, so they will both have to clear that Lamborghini. Probably going to do it after turn 12 on the straight here. Minimum compromise to both cars from doing that. You actually see the 3 green lights lit up on the side of that yellow and black Porsche. Those lights were added, I want to say, in the mid-2000s for the GT1 category to signify one light being you're in first place, 2 lights in second and third, and so on. And so 3 lights illuminated on the side of that Porsche to make it easy to spot what position he is in. But, Josh, I'm going to direct our attention a little bit further back to the gap between Alexander Clank and Sean Campbell has closed down to underneath a second now. With 10 minutes to go in this race, it was 2.5 seconds, just a handful of laps to go, and Sean Campbell has been pushing hard. Both of them has been starting to rack up instant points. Alexander Clank now at 14x. He was at 12x just a handful of laps ago. And at this rate, if he keeps on doing that, he will definitely have a drive-through by the end of this race. So he's going to keep it a little bit more clean than what he's been doing so far. But these guys are nose to tail now. This is your race.
This is the race for the GT3 win. It is WPI Worcester Polytechnic University, piloted by Alexander Clank, getting chased quickly by Sean Campbell from Randolph, and down into the final turn. We mentioned it was so important to get straight, using every bit of track. Both of these drivers, the rotating and the handling advantage might be to the Ferrari as well as the tow right now, guys, but we know that Mercedes is so fast in a straight line, and he's going to put a little defense. Can't go into that tire wall. It looks like a little bit of a run down into turn 1. Strong defense from the Mercedes.
Strong defense indeed. Going to have to be a little bit earlier on the brakes if you're going to do that one. He's a little bit wide in turn 1, but he's just going to park it on the apex. Expert move there from Clank, shows somebody with a lot of experience. If you're a little bit slow on the apex and have adequately blocked, the guy behind you has to check up, and that's exactly what we saw there. But now he's in the tow again. Clank defending hard to the inside, a very early and clean defense. Going to squeeze back over. Ferrari's going to try to do it around the outside. Tricky place to do it, an easy place to make contact. He's going to run wide and pick up another off track for that one. If Alex Clank can keep on doing that to him, then they'll be even on instant points before this end of the race. And that may come into play here as these guys continue to challenge right now. Down into turn 8, tricky braking zone, both taking as much curb on the outside as they possibly can. barely any space between the nose and tail of these two cars. Now into turn 9, a lot of camber in this corner, a lot of speed you can carry on the exit there, both using as much speed as they can. We'll see if Sean dives the inside for turn 10. He does not. Just keeps his nose clean. He's just going to wait, bide his time a little bit. He's got another 9.5 minutes, 8.5 minutes, excuse me, to work with before this race is over. And I can assure you he is going to make plenty of attempts to get around Clink before the end of this one.
Plenty of attempts, and a lot of them are going to come right here as they come off the final turn. He's got a strong toe and a lot of horsepower to get up to the first turn. We saw it last lap. Might see it again here as that Ferrari just starts to close the gap. You can see he'll move to the outside. He'll give Clank some room, and he will be alongside and maybe even past by the time they get to turn 1. Maybe not quite past, but down under heavy braking. Will it be the same move from Alexander Clank?
Yeah, parks it on the apex again. Clank can keep doing this lap after lap and maintain this lead. Expert defending from the Mercedes, from the WPI machine, but it looks like Campbell's a little bit closer on this lap coming out of turn 3. Alex is having to defend even earlier down to the inside, and Sean moves to the outside, both heavy on the brakes for turn 4, able to get it both parked down. Sean not picking up an off track on this occasion, and both of them running up to turns 6 and 7 right now. Still pretty close behind. Not an easy place to overtake here in Sector 2. Josh, you mentioned it was one of your favorite places on the track, and it's because the car is so loaded up through this section. It's really hard to get a fast change of direction, and that is what you need in an overtake. You have to be able to swing the nose inside of the other car, and there's just not a lot of opportunities to do it through this section of corners, except for this one at turn 10. So Sean's still going to take the wide line here. Knows he's got plenty of time left to work with. Running down through turn 11. Gets a pretty tight exit out of turn 10, which is going to enable him to get a nice run through there. But he's got the dirty air of the Mercedes in front to contend with. So late on the brakes, has to carry as much speed through the exit of turn 12 there as he can. Looks like he got a pretty good exit, Josh. He may challenge down to turn 1 this time around.
That might be it for Clank. You saw him just a little bit of a bounce and maybe a little bit of traction control intervene there. They'll defend to the outside. A little bit of a different strategy from these two. Guys, it's a chess match, and they're both reading each other's minds. Down into turn 1 again. Looks like there will be an advantage for the Mercedes into turn 1. Will we see it a third time? Yes. Parked on the apex, and that Randolph machine. Sean Campbell digging through his playbook, looking for what he can find to get around, guys.
I'll have to play that one back play by play, because I think if that was the last lap, then Sean may have just been in front as they crossed the line. That could come into play here, but as they come into turn 4, it's the same story as the last 3 laps side by side on the entrance. I think Clint just avoided picking up an instant point, an additional one on that one. So entering turn 6 and 7 now. Again, but yeah, I'm wondering if Sean Campbell's just going to wait for that last lap move out of turn 12 and set up a perfect exit. Maybe try to compromise Clank a little bit on a few corners behind, maybe overheat his tires a little bit, and then just nail him down to the line, and that might be less than a tenth of an advantage as they've reached the line. Clank already actually defending into turn 10 now. Clank taking a little bit different strategy. Again, going to park it on the apex. This is nip and tuck right now.
He had defended a little bit that lap previously, and more so this lap, as you saw, really off the racing line, trying to make sure that Ferrari cannot get around. This exit will be critical. You can see he's going to get a straight exit, pretty square, and so this is where the Ferrari is going to look, trying to get an advantage. You notice Randolph out of the slipstream just a little bit, and I wonder if he is looking to wait till that last lap, John, get a run. The best thing he can do is apply pressure and try and understand how to get around, but even if he doesn't get around, overheat those tires. Looks like he'll make his way to the inside here.
I was surprised that Clank did not defend that move as strongly as he had on the previous laps. It had been working for him up to that point, so I was very surprised to see that. That is risky as if he's going to do that in the next couple laps by Ferrari a little bit further back than on previous laps as we head down to turn 4. Clank had the opportunity all the way down that straight to swing down inside of that Ferrari, but he chose not to. Chose to take the wide line, which is the racing line into that corner, but not the defensive one. And so it would have been very easy for Sean Campbell to be very late on the brakes there and just park his car on the apex as Clank had done to him on previous laps and just give Clank nowhere to go. And at that point, even if Clank had hit him, it would be Clank's fault because Sean would have the advantage in that corner. So Sean showing his hand here right now, and somewhat uncharacteristic from Clank not to defend that.
Yeah, but you'll notice that maybe Clank had a little bit of a plan because he did not have to defend into turn 4, which is where we had seen a lot of close racing. So back through this section, you said both cars loaded up. Pretty hard to get around and make that pass, especially when you're alternating. There's just no time to get alongside. But now there's going to be time as they come into the final turn and hit that apex, both of them. And it looks like a little bit of grass, and I think that could be trouble for Alexander Klenk. Fast closing rate from the Ferrari behind. Randolph looking for any way to get around. He's going to make a move to the inside.
Yeah, making that move to the inside down into turn one, already alongside before they get to the start-finish straight. Klenk's going to try to squeeze him down on the turn. That's going to compromise Sean's braking zone as much as possible. Klenk been late on the brakes in that Mercedes all day long. Later again today, is he still going to stick his nose on the inside of turn two? Sean's going to give him space, but then Alex is going to actually have a lot of speed here as they come through turn three down to turn four. Klenk may have a shot to retake this lead from him before this race is done, but I think with that car length gap or so, as it closes down, Klenk's going to show his nose on the inside, be very late on the brakes for turn four, did not see this one coming, parks it on the apex, squeezing him to the outside. Expert car control from both gentlemen here driving, and the Ferrari and the Mercedes continue to battle it out. Ferrari on the inside for turn 6 and 7, again late on the brakes for that Mercedes. Alex is just commanding that Mercedes to go wherever he wants on this track, using a lot of curb, going to try to carry the speed around the outside. These guys have been side by side for close to half a lap now. Alex with the advantage on the inside of turn 9. A lot of grip here on both sides of the corner, it would seem. Ferrari with the advantage for turn 10 now. Advantage is just trading back and forth, and now it looks like the Ferrari is somewhat solidly in front, but Klenk may try to dive around the inside for turn 11. Not exactly a passing opportunity. Right on his tail. Is he going to try to do it at turn 12? Not a great place to do it, and he knows that that is going to compromise his exit out of that corner, and now he's back underneath the wing of that Ferrari, but that Ferrari looks to be pretty quick in a straight line, Josh.
I think it is, and if he can keep up through the second sector, I think that with all the notes that we've taken and that he's taken, Alexander Klenk's best bet might be to try and put that big V8 of the Mercedes in the draft as he goes down to the inside of the Ferrari, and it looks like he'll actually put a little bit of a power move, slide job, and takes that lead back. Brute force, no strategy required from the leader there, and that's going to be down through the first sector.
Yeah, somebody in post-race tech inspection may need to inspect the brakes on that Mercedes for some exotic materials, because I've never seen a Mercedes that heavy stop that quickly from about 165 miles an hour on that straight down to under 70 miles an hour for turn 1. Very impressive machinery happening on the track right now. Neon Racing right behind WPI, Randolph College right behind WPI. And this battle has raged on. Now we're getting some GTE cars involved here. This may shake up the traffic a little bit. Oftentimes we'll see guys use the other traffic as a pick for the other guys to try to put an advantage between them. So I know what Klenk is going to try to do here. He's going to try to get that Porsche in between the two cars, which will split them up a little bit and maybe just give him a little bit of breathing room. With under a minute left to go here, if it's not white flag lap, it will be this next one by.
The innovated white flags lap coming up, and you can see Alexander Klenk with the advantage. Can Sean Campbell here get by? Can he get a tow? They have asked politely, can the orange Porsche you see behind is in a different class, but can he chill out for a minute while we try and figure ourselves out? You can see here coming to the line, and it's going to be to the inside. The Mercedes there, sorry, that is WPI. Defending, again, we're going to see he'll be on the inside, but he has to leave room. Sean Campbell making space where there wasn't any. Side by side onto the long straight here. Advantage Mercedes for now.
Advantage Mercedes for now. I'm going to need confirmation from you, Jarrett, that this is in fact the innovated white flag lap, as Klenk hard defense down onto the inside for turn 4. These three Porsches just sitting here watching this battle unfold right in front of us through turn 4, side by side through turn 5. Slight advantage to the Mercedes, but the Ferrari's looking good through the rest of this lap. Klenk is trying to close down and defend wherever he can. Nick Trollman is having no patience right now and trying to get involved in this battle a little bit.
Nick Trollman, this is a battle, guys. This is the white flag, and we're seeing the leaders of the GT3 battle, and behind that we're seeing Derek McManus and Nick Trollman, who we've seen all season long. These two battles taking place inches apart on the track. Your leaders here, the Mercedes WPI defends. We've seen it before. Into this turn 8. It's going to be hard, tight. Nick Trollman trying his best to defend, but not run over the GT3 letters down through the fast turn 11. There they are, nose to tail for the time being.
Alex Klenk has 17X pop up. That will mean he has a drive-through penalty for WPI. He just ran wide on the exit of turn 11 right there. That probably means that that's going to put him a lap down. He will be telling him to go into the pit lane after that. That's, I think, going to give the lead to Sean Campbell anyways before they even get to the line, Josh.
It is. That is correct. So pinching, making no room. Nick Trollman will take that second position on the podium for GTEs. And you are correct. That final sector off track was going to be the trouble for Clank and WPI. So really not a lot of room. And yeah, it gotta hurt for WPI. Now your winner, your championship winner, will be Alexander Clank. However, not the way he wanted that race to end. Guys, we'll hear from him shortly. And guys, we're going to try and catch our breath from here. And we know that Jeremy Rogers from Texas A&M, your GTE race winner, John, as well as your season championship winner.
Yeah, season championship indeed. That's 3 wins in a row for Sean Campbell. He won at Road America, he won at Sebring, and now he wins here tonight in the heart of Brazil in Sao Paulo. What an incredible race. I'm going to have to watch the last 15 minutes of that race a number of times in the future here. There was just too much going on there to keep track of. Incredible car control from both guys. Didn't even touch each other at any point during that entire session. And Jared, I'm just ultimately impressed what a nail biter that was at the finish.
Man, Josh said it. Let's catch our breath. And yes, indeed. What a finish. And it wasn't just one lap. It was 3, 4, 5 laps of battling, guys setting each other up. And they were playing chess out there at 150 miles an hour down these straightaways. And what an exciting finish that was. You see Jeremy Rogers celebrating his alumni championship here, and we'll talk to him right now as you see him burning it down here in Brazil. Jeremy Rogers, congrats on that alumni championship, and boy, what a race you had here tonight.
Yeah, man, I thought Derek might have something for me in quali, but I don't know. I just had a good long run car, I guess.
Yeah, so first of all, race winner, congratulations. Maybe primarily season winner, Texas A&M. Double congratulations. So walk us through this race. I guess what you felt from the GTE perspective, but also this season. Tell us about the progress you guys have made and the absolute masterclass through car pace, racecraft, and the setup that you've done. We've had a lot of different venues that have been thrown at you guys as the competitors, and Texas A&M and yourself, Jeremy, doing a stellar job. Walk us through that.
Yeah, I mean, definitely a lot of great tracks. I appreciate the schedule you guys laid out. It was a great one. I would have liked to go to Detroit, but that's just me. But anyway, I've got to say that I'm definitely a case of if I can do it, anybody can. I don't really have that much natural skill. I just have put a lot of time into practice and learning setups this season. Theodore Burns most definitely is faster than me. He's also a real life race engineer, so thankfully he is really open with sharing his knowledge, and I got so much faster this season learning from him. So many thanks to him for teaching me what he knows. And like I said, I'm not that great, but Alex Clank coming up is a lot faster than me. I know from another league I've run with him. So I'm glad that I managed to close this one out while I could.
Yeah, well, your lap times would beg to differ, man. You ran in 29-second laps this entire time. I don't think any of the other GTE cars were able to do that. So you said you learned setup tips from Ted. What did you employ for this race? What made you so successful this time out?
So I started with the Road America setup and ticked up the rear wing just a little bit to keep it a little bit more stable. There's a lot of elevation change here. So along with tightening up the diff just a little bit, like you basically turn 11, I think it is, the descent into Yunqiao. You can get the rear loose very easily on throttle there. I was even lifting a little bit just for safety. Other than that, just my normal high rake, stiff rear, get the thing to rotate in and get it to rotate off with the throttle.
Definitely. Well, last thing, and then we'll send you on your way. We saw your pit stop be incredibly short and, frankly, very late in the race. Were you saving fuel at all, or were you just kind of running it dry?
I don't really know. I don't know if the Corvette, I don't race other GTEs, so I don't know if the Corvette just sips fuel or what. I even added an extra lap just because Race Labs was kind of freaking me out with its calculations. But no, it wasn't saving fuel. I was actually going more Senna than Prost this race, pretty hard, which is, I guess, fitting. He's buried about 10 miles from this track.
I'll tell you what, a masterclass performance by you here tonight, and another an alumni championship to go with it. So tell us how that feels, and anyone you want to give a shout out to. The floor is yours.
It feels really wonderful. I never thought I'd get a championship in any iRacing series, league or otherwise, because there's always somebody faster. As far as shout outs, I would like to shout out you guys for putting on the broadcast. It's really wonderful. I'd like to shout out the people who watch on Twitch. You guys are the fans, the best fans. And you guys, we're all pretend racing drivers out here, and it's a little pretend whenever there's people watching. So thank you to all of you, and thank you to our sponsors. Same kind of thing as the fans. Like, it's a little bit less pretend whenever there's people backing us up. It's really wonderful what they do for the league.
Definitely. Well, great when you put a show on. So, Jeremy Rogers, go enjoy that win. Go enjoy that championship, and we'll talk to you again soon.
Thanks. It was the GT3 guys that put on the show. Cheers.
So, Jeremy Rogers coming away. And you heard it there. Just so excited to get in front of the fans here on Twitch and YouTube. Be racing for a little something there at the end, provided by NextBookIt and Innovated Labs. And boy, what a race he had. You mentioned it, just absolutely running away with it. The interval at the end was insane, guys.
Yeah, I was kind of surprised to hear him mention that he was going a little bit more Senna rather than Prost. That's a reference to Senna's driving style of maximum aggression all the time, whereas Prost was kind of known as the professor in the Formula One paddock and would not push if he did not need to. So very interesting from him. Senna, of course, being buried 10 miles from this track, as he mentioned. Senna, this was his home track in Brazil. Senna very tragically killed at the 1994 San Marino Grand Prix in Italy. But I'm sure that you'd be watching this race and be pretty happy to see what he saw here on a screen tonight.
Definitely. What a battle there at the end. And here to talk us through his perspective, Sean D. Campbell joining us up in the booth. And Sean, what a win here tonight. What a battle there at the end. Walk us through those final couple laps battling Alex Clank.
I don't know. It was close, I guess. I believe I had less wing than him when I was talking with him after the race. So you could see going into the corners, I was able to get like way past alongside, but then he'd come flying on the brakes because he had way more downforce. So it was weird trying to get past because you'd think you'd have it, and then he'd come straight back past.
Yeah, well, that definitely seemed to be the case. It looked like you were getting pretty good exits out of turn 12 compared to Clank, and just about every single time you were able to get alongside him into turn 1, but it looked like he was pretty late on the brakes. But I'm going to go a different direction with my question for you. Talk to me about your pit stop strategy. I know you stopped about 22 or 23 minutes in to the race. Was that going to plan? Did you put only about 10 gallons in at the start of the race and plan to take the remaining on sort of that 20-minute pit stop mark?
I put full fuel in at the start, and I was going to try and undercut just to get like clean air, I guess, to try and undercut the GT leaders because I heard they were being lapped at the back. And I came out right in front of them instead, which is unfortunate. But it was okay. I didn't lose time from that. I do think I put a bit too much fuel in there because I lost about 4 seconds, I believe, to Alex.
You had mentioned that the setup was pretty key, and that you were able to run through and have a lot of back and forth with WPI and Clank. Walk us through and tell us how your caster factored into your setup, and what did that teach you? What did you learn about it throughout the race, and would you change anything doing it again?
You're gonna say something about the caster. I don't know. Caster's just, I guess, more of a driving style thing because I know like the top guys they run a really high caster, and I believe it's just for a sensitivity thing. I don't know. I run a lower caster because you don't have to move the wheel as much. So if you slide, you're able to turn the wheel a tiny bit and it'll come back. But I think it's preference whether or not what caster you run.
Well, I tell you what, it looks like whatever you did, it worked for you here tonight. That was a great battle there at the end. We mentioned up here in the booth just being out of breath watching you guys go at it there for lap after lap. So, Sean Campbell, anyone you want to give a shout out to here after the win?
I guess shout out to Michael and Max again for introducing me to the series. I say it always. Shout out to Eric over in the N Racing for getting the liveries for the car, like get hiring. And that's it. Shout,
Oh.
out, shout out to Alex for the battle. Great.
Well, great looking car and a great looking battle for sure. So, Sean Campbell, congrats again on the win, and I'm sure we're going to talk to you again soon. So that was Sean D. Campbell joining us in the booth, and you heard it right there. It's the little minute differences in driving style. We were able to see how those brakes that we talked about on the Alexander Clank car were able to come into factor. And that's what's so fun about this open setup is guys can drive it differently, and you can really make the car work how you want it, right?
Yeah, and it's also an opportunity for these guys to try to experiment and learn a little bit more. A lot of these guys are still in school, obviously, since we have a student category, and a lot of them are engineering students, many of them participating on Formula SAE teams as well. And learning about car setup is completely transferable skills, and this is a great avenue to do it where you can try different things without any worry about wrecking your car or completely ruining the setup entirely.
So our final interview tonight is going to be your student champion here tonight, Alexander Klink, joining us up in the booth. And Alex, before we ask you about that championship, let's talk about those final couple laps when you're battling with Sean Campbell. What a move you put on there a couple times in the braking zones. Talk us through that late braking, what that takes out of your car.
Yeah, I mean, that's always been a strong suit of the Merc, and I think it was especially so because we were running some differences in the amount of downforce we had on the car. So, I felt pretty comfortable just really getting on the brakes much later than him. Obviously, his car had advantages in other areas.
So, Alex, where'd you pick up that last 1x penalty to put you at 17x? Was it right there on the exit of turn 11, and how'd that happen?
That was after the race was over when I was having fun and being dumb. So I don't know if that counted as a penalty or something, but
Yeah, so no, I think you are officially scored there as second as you guys completed there. So, yeah, first of all, congratulations on the overall season championship for yourself, bringing WPI Worcester Polytechnic Institute to the school championship for CIL. Congratulations.
thank you. Thank you. Yeah, it's been a really great season. So much great competition, and I've really, really enjoyed it.
So I think John was kind of walking you through there the final laps, but tell us a little bit. You went maybe 3 or 4 laps, and it's usually pretty easy to have new tricks over a 2 or 3 lap battle. But over that battle, we saw a lot of the same moves. Braking, trying to park on the apex of turn 1, trying to cross over. We saw what Sean was trying to do. We saw your defense. Sometimes nose to tail, sometimes side by side into turn 4. And then through the second sector a couple times, what was going through your mind every time? Were you trying to think one step ahead of Sean? Were you trying to respond to where he put his car? Were you, especially you came out of the final turn, right? You guys were side by side usually going down into turn 1. Were you trying to determine where you could put his car?
Yeah, for me, it was always about trying to make sure that I could at least be side by side with him, mostly going into the corner, because I knew that I had an advantage basically in all the twisty bits. Or at least I should say more on the entries, maybe in the mid slow speed stuff, he was pretty fast, but going into corners, I definitely had the advantage. So, it was all about like making sure I got good exits, which is what you're, mentioning, parking it on turn 1. If I was coming in really tight, sacrifice the entry and then square it up and then mash the gas. And yeah, it was a lot of the same stuff, a few changes here and there as we were sort of figuring it out, but it was a great battle.
It was a great one to watch up here in the booth as well. Alexander Klink, you're going to graduate to the alumni category next year. So, anyone you want to give a final shout out to here as the student champion?
Just shout out to you guys for putting this on every week, with the Oval as well. Thanks, of course, to everybody for coming out, for making this a great series, and it's just been really a blast. And I'm looking forward to seeing you guys all next season.
Sounds like a great plan. Alexander Klink, congrats again on the championship, and go enjoy yourself tonight.
Thanks, guys.
So that was your student champion, Alexander Klink, bringing it home for WPI and holding off Nate Olson and that Illinois team. And guys, that was a fun one tonight.
Yeah, a fun one indeed. That's you don't get too many battles like that last for as long as that one did in any racing series, whether it be oval or roadside, no matter the track or the car combination. It's pretty rare to see two guys at the top of their game in different machinery even competing for that long of a time. I think the only thing that comes close to that is maybe MX5 racing, Spec Miatas, something like that. It's pretty uncommon that you see cars that are as fast as this with guys like this driving it go side by side, lap after lap. That was just ultimately impressive.
And just as impressive is all the work that NextBookIt has done for us this season and the work that they've done with their company. So we'll hear from NextBookIt and get you right back for some final thoughts here at Interlagos. So as you saw right there, NextBookIt connects book lovers with each other to buy and sell their books, from textbooks to fiction and really everything in between. For every account that is created with the code CIL2021, that's CIL2021, NextBookIt will put $5 toward the CIL Scholarship Fund, which gets directly redistributed right back to the drivers you saw on your screen here tonight. So anyone racing, if they need a car, a track, anything to get them out on the racing surface, NextBookIt able to provide that here tonight. And that's why you see these excellent fields week after week here in the CIL. And as we wrap up this road one, you see on your screen currently the graduates here of the CIL. One of them, your student champion, Alexander Klink. Josh?
Alexander Klink there. We've said it mostly all night, guys. Worcester Polytechnic, completing his Bachelor's of Science in Aerospace Engineering. Actually, will go on to complete or endeavor onto a master's degree there at the same school. So Avery Walker, you see there, Cody Fadenauer from VCU, and Avery Walker from the University of Virginia, doing mechanical engineer with a minor in materials science engineering. I know, John, I had enough. One or two classes in material science was enough for me, but maybe not for Mr. Walker there at Virginia. So over to the other side of the country, USC, that's Maximilian Bowie, a student who's been with us through even the pilot season 1 there, completing, as you can see, had done his bachelor's and now his master's in engineering management. Phenomenal to see these guys. Colby Sherwood, who we will again mention next week as we go to Phoenix for the Oval Championship. But let's not get ahead of ourselves. Colby Sherwood from Ohio State University, computer science and engineering. And we mentioned Cody Fadenauer with a bachelor's in mechanical engineering, and doing a lot. We'd love to have him around the Discord, and he's a vital component of some of our social media crews. So there's Cody Fadenauer. And now we see the final race results, the standings as they finished from this exciting round 6 at Interlagos.
Yeah, exciting round 6, exciting championship finale, and Jeremy Rogers, your alumni championship and winner here tonight for Texas A&M in that 112, the 12th man machine, taking home the win. Nick Trollman in second place for Cal State Long Beach. Derek McManus in third for San Diego State, your podium finishers. Carl Lemkool in fourth. Rahul Bolaneni, Nathan Kuhl in sixth. Alexandre Pacini in seventh for Santa Maria Federale, his home race here tonight. And then on to actually your student finishers, a couple finishing in front of a handful of alumni. Sean Campbell, your winner here tonight with that amazing battle between the second place finisher and your champion of the overall student category, Alexander Klink for Worcester Polytechnic in ninth. Nicholas Daly for University of Texas at Arlington in 10th in your alumni field and overall. And Sean Delandia in 11th for UCLA. Cohen Evans in 12th for IUPUI in that BMW with that fantastic livery on it. And Michael Gaholich in 13th for San Angelo State in Texas. Thomas Toomey in 14th for Virginia. Matthew Norberg 15th. Avery Walker 16th, the second Virginia car in your field. Then another alumni, Scott Ratliff, Pittsburgh State, a gentleman that's responsible for a number of the liveries you actually see day in and day out and every week on both the oval and roadside. And then Gavin Keithley in 18th from Minnesota Twin Cities, wrapping up your championship finale round. So, Jarrett, that was a heck of a race, man. Battles all the way throughout. We were conversating a little bit before the race and talking about, it's a little bit smaller field. There may not be quite as much action as some of the other races we've been to, but I tell you what, man, I don't think any of these guys listened to that one. That was action-packed.
Yeah, boy, were we wrong, weren't we? It's always fun to be wrong when you get something like that, but we had a battle for the lead. We saw that contact between Koholich and Campbell, knock Koholich all the way back down to 6th in the student category, and it was really anyone's race for really the entire race long. So I think that was really fun to see, especially in these GT3 cars, which provide that closer racing, and that's why we got the students in it this season, is for that close-knit racing, and it's great to see it paying off here tonight. Josh?
Yeah, certainly. And guys, I was so focused on the GT3 battle, I was trying to figure out why those Porsches were huddled up so close to this battle, and it's because they were racing. So with Jeremy Rogers out front, we were focusing on the GT3 battle here, and man, we had those guys. That was Nick Trollman from Cal State Long Beach and Derek McManus, and those guys were going right for that second podium spot. And we also saw Nicholas Daly from UT at Arlington, Texas at Arlington, trying to give room there and give way. But absolutely fantastic, multi-class racing, multi-class that we enjoy seeing, and guys are giving and taking, and it is a display of talent there when it's the final lap, and there's nowhere to go, and everybody wants to be in front. Really, really fun to watch. I think these guys probably had the most difficult job trying to get around. I think our job was pretty enjoyable to get back and observe. But yeah, that was probably my takeaway, and one of my favorite moments maybe of this race and this season is the multi-class battle that we've seen. And I'll wrap up with I thought Sebring was exciting. I thought we were seeing WPI Randolph, pounding around Sebring there against the University of Illinois, trying to get sorted out. And I didn't think it could get better, but Jarrett, I was wrong. And you said that's a pretty good feeling. So absolutely fantastic, and could not think of a better way to provide a season finale and championship, and then crown WPI the winner here in the Collegiate iRacing League on the roadside.
Yeah, and you mentioned it right there, Josh. The new guys who come in, just immediately coming in and competing. We think about the Nate Olsons. We think about the Sean Campbells, the Michael Koholiches. His first race was on oval, and I picked him to win, and he came away third, I believe, that night. So very cool to see the continued growth of the CIL as well, pushing these guys to the next level. And I think you heard it from the mouth of Alexander Klink. He was like, yeah, we had a good battle. We got to continue to go at it. And you heard Jeremy Rogers. Yeah, I'm ready to battle Klink next season. So a lot of good racing and a lot of competitors ready to go at it again, John.
Yeah, absolutely. And at the end of the day, it's all down to the students. This is what this league is about, a way for these guys to come in here and represent their schools as best as they can, and represent them well. They certainly do. And what a season it's been, all the way back from 12 weeks ago at Circuit of the Americas, where we had a pretty phenomenal race with, I believe it was Nate Olson for Illinois that you just mentioned, came home with the win there. Then on to Laguna Seca where Alexander Klenk came away with his first win of the season to start his championship stride. And then Suzuka, again, Klenk won that one. And then 3 races in a row won by Sean Campbell. I would be very scared if I'm a student in season 3 competing, because I know Sean Campbell has already put a hallmark on that championship before that first race has even started. And without a schedule decided or cars decided or a lot decided for season 3 for these guys, I'd still be pretty afraid of Sean Campbell going into that one. But I'm sure a lot of these guys that are going to transition into the alumni category, such as Alexander Klenk and Cody Fadenhauer and some others, and Avery Walker as well, are going to give Jeremy Rogers a run for his money. You hear Jeremy talking about that in his interview, where he said he knows just how fast Alexander Klenk is from another league that they both participate in. So I cannot wait to see what that holds for us in the future.
Definitely. And if you want more CIL action, we're not done yet this season. We've got one more finale for you. It's going to be next week at the same time, same place. So you can tune in either on Twitch or YouTube. And we'll be bringing it to you from the Oval out in Phoenix. So that should be a good one there. You'll see a lot of the same names as well as some new names. Hopefully Austin Farr rejoining us, Nick Beaver as well. Some of those big names we talk about on the Oval side. But for one last time for us all up here in the booth, thank you so much for joining us. All the guys mentioned it. You guys watching really make this worthwhile. And it's a pleasure to bring it to you week in and week out. So for one last time on the roadside, thank you for joining. Tune in again next time, and we will see you again soon.